So it's a pleasure being on Daily Hunt. And I just want to actually just say that the actual focus of the budget was the roadmap for fiscal consolidation and looking at reaching 4.5% of the deficit by 2025-26. And that single decision has actually allowed us to do a lot of investments in different segments: healthcare, infrastructure, social infrastructure, rural infrastructure, agriculture going forward. So if you look at the infrastructure sector, there are multiple things being done for the infrastructure sector to enable long-term finance for the debt finance for the infrastructure sector. In addition to the NIIF, which is there, you're looking at a development financial institution that will enable the funding of infrastructure projects going forward. In addition, the foreign direct investment, especially by the sovereign funds and the others who are actually facing some challenges, they've agreed to, or they have also proposed that all those difficulties will be taken over, and even investing in direct infrastructure projects will actually go on. And
Yeah.
then the other way of raising money for this was monetization of the different infrastructure projects across road, rail, gas, sports stadia, for example. This is not really privatization. This is monetization. Right? So there's a difference there which you can actually look at. And of course, the disinvestment program, including the two public sector banks and the one other additional insurance company and the IPO for LIC. So that's on the infrastructure side. There is also the doubling of the rural infrastructure fund they have talked about, the investment in the Swachh Bharat scheme, in the Jal Yojana. So all these things, if you look, they have a lot in common, right? Even if you look at the healthcare announcements, while
Yeah.
it's most going to result in physical infrastructure or other equipment, so it's going to create demand for certain products and sectors. And this increased demand is actually going to generate the confidence in the economy and enable companies to increase their investments and increase capacity utilization and then create jobs. So in that context, if you look at the budget, this is a budget that is focused at creating short, medium, and long-term demand, creating investments, and with demand and investments, obviously comes job creation.
Well, yes, sir, of course. But if we look at the announcement that has been made, the government has said that two public sector banks will be uh, uh, they should will be privatized. So, which public sector banks do you think the government should pick?
Well, I think it's up to the government to decide which are the banks that they would look at. We have some very large banks there which are structurally important. And if you look at the annexure, and that is very important to see, the strategic sectors where they'll not disinvest, actually public sector banks and financial institutions are there, along with telecom and transport and space and others. This is the annexure to the budget, which you did not see. So don't see some of the large banks being privatized. LIC was example insurance, and they've increased the insurance FDI to 74%, which is with some caveats. That's also positive. So you might see some of the mid to small banks being done. Recently one bank which was in a problem was actually merged with a foreign bank situated in India. So you'll see things like that happening. But the public sector banks have played a very important role during the COVID crisis, and I think so it'll be very strategic, this investment going forward.
But so if we look at this particular budget, there's not enough has been done on the disinvestment front. So how do you see this entire thing that there's somewhat reducing of the targets? So how do you see the government's strategy towards disinvestment?
So, first, she made three statements regarding this investment, right? The first one was ensuring that the BPCL, Air India, BEML, all those shelf, which is currently will be completed by March 31st, 2021. The second is that the target of 1,75,000 crores has actually been proposed for next year, right? And she also said that there will be a strategic disinvestment plan and policy put in place, which has actually been announced in the budget going forward. So you can argue whether it should be 1,75,000 crores or 2 lakh crores, etc. But this budget is looking at, the idea of disinvestment is to raise resources for investment. And in this budget, they've looked at raising resources from they've allowed the zero coupon bonds to come in. They've looked at, the investment in the bank. They're creating the asset reconstruction company. They're looking at recapitalization of the financial institutions going forward to improve the quality of asset flows here. So it's not one thing. It has to be seen in the whole. You can't just pick out one aspect of the budget and comment it, and you have to look at the whole thing and look at which direction we are headed.
So what kind of stimulus do you think that this budget provides for the economical revival?
So there are multiple levels of stimulus for the economic revival. The real estate sector by allowing the 1.5 lakhs income tax reduction to continue for 1 year, designated projects for low cost rental housing will be given tax exemption. Allowing the tax exemption on low cost housing to actually continue is actually stimulating the real estate sector. She's also in her whole budgetary outlay, she's kept 40,000 crores to support initiatives that are actually going to add value. So she might actually support states. If states come in, for example, Maharashtra reduced the stamp duty, right? And that led to a huge lot of, so if other states actually take that forward, you will see some stimulus in the real estate sector. Anything linked to infrastructure, right, is there. For the commercial vehicle sector, the urban transportation PPP program that was announced for the number of buses that are there, it's a great boost to the commercial vehicle sector. Looking at the textile sector, you have a huge the mega textile parks coming in, the proposed PMP in the solar modules which is coming in, and if you look at the other sectors in which, like the mobile phones, have tweaked the duties to promote chargers and other small components here. So sector by sector, they've done. I mean, the agriculture sector, they've expanded the tops, which is the tomato, onions, potatoes, thing to more than 22 other products. So I think many different things. Fisheries, they've talked about a lot of seaweed farming in Tamil Nadu. So if you look at it, there are different aspects of the budget across infrastructure, across segments of industry. Of course, the 13 PLI sectors that they announced, the thing will only kick in with this budget. While they announced it earlier, by the time the schemes and all are coming, it will be kicked up in this budgetary year. So you can say those 13 sectors plus additional textile, plus commercial vehicles, plus agricultural products, plus the entire thing of solar modules, etc. And if I look at everything that is associated with healthcare, health equipment, beds, the whole kind of stuff which is required in a hospital. The education sector also has been incentivized there.
So if you look at the two budgets of the Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman, what she delivered last year and what we saw this year, so how do you compare the two budgets?
Well, if you look at last year also, the focus was also on infrastructure. Infrastructure, disinvestment, right? She had chosen, the top scheme was introduced last year, right? And it'll not be accurate to compare last year's budget and this year's budget. Last year, she did a lot of reduction in taxation. She gave an alternate taxation window for personal income tax if you did not take the exemptions, right? And therefore, given that this was the first budget after many years, after 2000, where you actually had a huge fiscal deficit and you had the economy contracting, the space for her was pretty limited. And yet, I think she has done, at least point a short and medium and long-term direction to continue what people were seeing as a V-shaped recovery going forward. Some sectors, I think it's too early for them to announce in those sectors. So maybe you might see some mini announcements coming during the course of the year to be able to help those sectors, especially tourism, hospitality, the high physical contact areas.
So as an industry body, how do you see this particular budget? What are the most positive points of this budget and what are the key takeaways?
So the most positive point about this budget is the growth-oriented budget. Right? It focuses on the three key, four key elements that we were acquiring, right? Infrastructure, investment, innovation, and healthcare, all leading to job creation. So if you look at it, so this is a very important aspect of the budget. The budget can't do everything for everybody, right? You know, it's like our domestic home budget. No, we like to do so many things with the money that we take home, but we can't. We have to take priorities. So the finance minister has, and the government has taken a set of priorities, which by and large everybody seems to be satisfied with. They could be saying, why is this sector, why is this not being included? But if there's a need be, the government has always shown budget or no budget, they can actually address this going forward. The biggest thing was the whole aspect of looking at the fiscal deficit and getting a medium to long term roadmap. And that is the thing. And looking at how to fix the financial sector, whether recapitalization of the banks, created the asset management cooperation, which is something like a bad bank, but I don't know. We'll have to wait and see what that there is. So in the financial sector, which was originally known as a twin balance sheet problem, I think looking at addressing that and ensuring increased agricultural credit and not crowding out investment by borrowing large amounts is also a very positive factor there.
So if you look at this particular budget, there has been no change in the income tax slab. So how do you see this budget is for the common man?
So actually, there is something in this budget which will actually impact the common man going forward. And she said that she's looking at incentive for digital payments. So and that is very interesting at this point of time. She's also said that some of the exemptions that were given there would be reviewed. At I think there is an annexure in the budget which talks about some of the exemptions that were there. But this digital payment thing is something like the LTC scheme that they announced. You can monetize it provided you spend digitally on items that have over 18% GST, right? So I think you will get some incentive, and it's quite a large sum that they've put in there, right? So that is one. And second, I think if this getting the Ujjwala scheme, adding one crore there, getting water to every household in some cities, increasing the air pollution impact in the different cities, the other thing of water, sanitation, and healthcare. I think the healthcare out-of-pocket expenditure is about 65%, and in the economic survey said if you can reduce it to 35%, that actually impacts the healthcare, the average individual. So there are many other ways of actually improving. Then you augmenting public transportation by metros, by the buses, right? You're improving connectivity. So you will see that actually impacting the common man in different ways. Yes, there could be an argument that there is. Yes, the agricultural cess could be on income tax. It is not an income tax. It's only on certain items of import, other than fuel, and they've reduced the excise duty in the fuel to actually compensate. So there'll be some thing there. But that amount of money investing in agriculture infrastructure is actually going to benefit the farmers of this country.
So as we know, the Prime Minister has been talking about Atmanirbhar Bharat time and again, and even in this budget, 27.1 lakh crores have been marked for the Atmanirbhar Bharat package. So how do you think, what kind of push will this provide?
So the Atmanirbhar package actually provides for multiple things, going forward. Part of it is industry, part of it is local manufacturing and looking at. So there's been about 3,500 crores provided for vaccines, right? And this will be for domestic vaccines and things like that going forward. In the defense budget, not announced in the speech, but in the figures, 1,000 crore increase has been made for defense capital expenditure, right? Which in this context is also very interesting. The finance minister also talked about the 13 sectors for the PLI scheme. You've talked about the changes in customs duty in areas of chemicals, in area of textiles, in areas of auto components, in some areas of copper scrap, steel scrap, which will make it competitive for people to actually manufacture in India. The three other things that are impacting people are the cost and availability of finance by recapitalization the banks, by creating the development financial institution. Hopefully, it will go beyond agriculture, look at long-term industrial projects also. And if you look at the whole aspect of the cost of power, in which they have said that you'll be given the alternate to choose from at least two discoms, looking at it differently there. So, and also improving the logistics thing, the dedicated freight corridors, the enhancement of the ports, getting the ports more protective by getting PPP model for port handling. Actually, while the port will be owned by the government, they will not carry out the services. The services will be done by a third party, which is also increasing the efficiency. And then a whole slew of airport projects that they're taking forward. So if you're looking at from a Atmanirbharta point of view, five things have been done. One, the PLI scheme has been actually looked at and referred to. Two, the textile park scheme has been done. Three, the customs duty has been created to actually impact this for the PMP program in solar thing. And five, looking at the competitiveness issue in terms of cost of finance, infrastructure costs, logistics costs, and power costs.
But so what are the points where you see that this budget has somewhere lagged? If we see what were the kind of expectations from this budget, where do you see some of the sectors where the government could have given a greater push?
It's all a question of timing, right? So at this point of time, right? I think given the whole ecosystem, this could be done. There are some other measures that can be done by RBI, extending the moratorium on the loans for some more period, looking at the Kamath committee recommendations and looking at tweaking it from the sectors that are not going to be reviving in the next 2 to 3 years, and looking at that like tourism, etc. They have given a thing for leasing if you invest in the gift city, right? But can that be looked at differently? But those are all things which I think at this point of time, the issue was really to get back, to create confidence, to have a stable short, medium term kind of a direction of which way the economy was going. A lot of people were wondering whether they will withdraw a lot of the stimulus measures now and go back to tightening of the fiscal. This is not done, actually not done for the next 3 to 4 years, which is a very positive step. And that gives them flexibility to do much more if they want to do. Remember, she has that 40,000 crores, which she has kept with DEA, which she can do something with going forward.
So, as we've seen that India has kind of doubled the healthcare spending, and it was very much needed that we are reeling under the coronavirus pandemic. So healthcare is one sector which needed absolute focus. So how do you see that the government can move ahead in this sector? As we've seen in the past, the spending of the government in healthcare has been low. So do you think this is going to act like a precedent for the next budgets as well, that how now we need to focus on healthcare?
Yeah, I think if you look at the focus on healthcare, it is a multiple focus, right? And yes, this is only step one. In fact, a lot of the announcements in the budget, in some of the cases, are over a period of 3 years. So you have to actually look at that going forward. And they're looking at not only primary healthcare centers, they're looking at increasing the capability to detect and control things at airports, ports, and other points of road points of entry. Because if you recall, the virus actually came in through from overseas. It was not a domestic produced pandemic. So the surveillance methods there, they're looking at it. They're looking at improving diagnostic capability. They're looking at improving research capability in addition to the primary healthcare centers and the secondary healthcare facilities across that. So it is across the area. Yes. Some incentives could have been given for the private sector health to also invest. But as of now, there are provisions. Those provisions have not been removed. There was a hope that, from 100-bed limit will go down to 50 or to 25. But let's see, it's still work in progress. And but as a common person, right? This and linked with the Ayushman Bharat program. Right, it is very important because healthcare being a major component of our daily expenditure, it is a very positive development for all people within the country. The other thing is about this national paramedical board, which they have set up to ensure that skilled people are available across the country, is also an important development.
So, sir, as we've seen, the government has also announced an import tax cut on the gold and silver to 7.5% from the 12.5%. So, how do you see this tax cut, and what is going to be the effect of this?
No, I think the tax will balance out here. The government has looked at it in a very balanced way. It brought it back to earlier levels. So it's a positive step going forward. And of course, even the gems in the gem sector, they have actually rationalized things on artificial gems. This is a big market here. So it's a step in the right direction.
So, sir, to summarize the entire discussion, what do you think has been done by the government in this budget will deliver on the future prospects, and also what do you think are the best key takeaways from this budget?
I think if you look at the future of any country is dependent on the human capital and health, right? So they're focused on human capital, both in the higher education. If you look at the annexure, which talks about the investment according to the national new education policy, you will see that they have actually outlined a lot of focus on digital infrastructure for education, which is not in the speech but is there in the annexure. They have looked at the whole advantage for digitization and digital payments and looking at that sort of thing for the future. If you look at the infrastructure, which is key, right, and public transportation and infrastructure, it's all building Atmanirbhar Bharat for the future. If you look at the whole aspect of the bank recapitalization, the asset creation, the asset management body, and the development financial institution, these are really medium and long-term, competitiveness enhancing things, along with the electricity and the rural infrastructure, and of course all the steps that they have taken in agriculture, fisheries, animal husbandry. CB may sound like very specialized, but it's a huge thing going forward. And if we can look at that, and of course, while there's only a mention about the space and about the ocean development program, these are also critical to long-term future of the country.
Thank you, sir. Thanks a lot for joining us. And we hope that this budget gives the required stimulus that our economy needs at this point of time, that we're reeling under the coronavirus pandemic, and we've suffered so much already in these past few months. Thanks a lot for joining us, sir.
Thank you. Thank you so much.